All right, so welcome everybody. My name's Chris Price. I'm the Academic Programs Manager for the SUNY Center for Professional Development, and this is the first SUNY Faculty Development Community of Practice meeting of this academic year. We have a few more planned this semester, and you're more than welcome to attend all of them or just one or this one or whatever you're interested in. We'll plan on doing more of these in the spring. Maybe more than 3, maybe like 4. It depends on what folks want to talk about. But we figured that the first one this semester would probably be ideal to talk about the transition to Brightspace, since it's, one of the few times I've been in SUNY as a student and then as a faculty member and staff member since 1992. So this is the first time I can remember in many years, and 30 years that SUNY is all going through something like this together, for the most part, right? There are a couple of campuses that are not joining us on this Brightspace adventure, but so I thought, why don't we get everybody together? It's a good time because we have a lot of campuses that have already gone through the transition or in the middle going through the transition, and a few that will be doing it next year. So we had a pretty good registration for this session. I anticipated that not everybody would make it, but looks like we got 25 people here right now. Why don't you go ahead and in the chat, where we don't have enough time to have everyone do introductions, just put your name, your campus, and what Brightspace cohort you're in. That way folks can go back and look to see, if they have questions for you, if you're in an earlier cohort, or and just so we get a sense of where you're all at. So go ahead and do that now. While you're all doing that, there are a couple of announcements I'd like to make before we get started, and then I'll invite you all as well to make any announcements about events or other things going on. So Lisa mentioned just before we started recording that SUNY Oneonta is hosting a digital learning conference in person, November 4th or 5th. We haven't done many of those things lately, and they have lots of different options for you to drive in or stay overnight. It's not incredibly expensive. The registration fees are really just covering meals. I'm on the planning committee for the event. So, they've really tried to make it as accessible as possible for those of you who would like to attend, but maybe don't have a ton of travel funds available to you. So I put the link there in the chat. It's a really great agenda plan. There's some workshops, there's some concurrent sessions, and I see Chilton just popped up. So Chilton is kind of the host of he and Ed Beck at Oneonta. I don't know, you want to say anything else, Chilton?
I don't know what's been said, so hey, we're hosting.
Sorry to put you on the spot. I was just introducing the conference and encouraging everybody to attend.
Yeah, so November 4th and 5th, that's a Friday and a Saturday. We're hoping to have people come for as much as little as they're able to come for, but would love to have as many people come and hear about neat things that are going across SUNY on how faculty are using spaces to help students be able to explore things that are both open and public, and being able to put things that are forward facing so that they're public facing and can be used in applied ways. So there's a lot of really neat projects that are out there that we're hoping to be able to share and create more of a community around. So I hope
the conference will go Friday into Saturday. So we don't do too many Saturday conferences, but we thought, let's give it a shot. Let's see, we know you're all so busy during the week, supporting faculty or doing what you do. So there'll be a lot of Saturday events to attend if you are too busy during the week to attend the Friday part of the conference.
Did you already share the link to the conference?
Yeah, I'll put it one more time for folks who might have just joined us. So here's the link to the digital learning conference, and just below that, I'm going to drop again the link to the agenda for today in the chat as well below that. Before we get going with talking about Brightspace, are there any other questions or about things going on in SUNY, about the conference, any announcements you'd like to make? Feel free to do this. Again, this is a community of practice, so anything is welcome among members of this community, of which you all are part because you're here. Okay, well, if you think of anything and you want to throw it in the chat, go ahead and do that. I just also want to just introduce quickly a person who you all probably know if you're going through the Brightspace transition or will be, and that's my colleague Jamie Heron, who's here as well, who's been leading the trainings. I promised to just have Jamie come and answer any questions, but not lead things. She's been doing a lot of leading webinars over the last few months, and that's a way under exaggeration of all the work she's been doing on Zoom presenting. So I'm going to take the lead here. And by take the lead, as I said, it's really a facilitated discussion more than anything else. I mean, I wanted to give you all an opportunity to connect with those on other campuses, to just talk about how you're supporting faculty, right? This is the faculty development community of practice. And so, I've already started looking at the document. There are lots of great approaches there. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop the link again in the chat if you just joined us. And I'm going to just share my screen real quick. I think we'll just kind of go through, one question at a time. I'll give those of you, all of you a chance to look at what's there for the first question. We'll start with the first question. So let me share my screen. If I could find it here. Here we go. That's the conference. So here's the agenda. And so if you could drop your name, title, campus, email there, that would be great. We could add, just feel free to add Rose. I'll do that maybe as we go along there. But why don't you all just take a minute to look at the first question: what program services has your campus offered to help faculty learn how to use Brightspace? And then I think what we'll just do is I'll open it up for questions. Is there anything, after I give you a minute to look at what folks said for number one, you can just use the raise hand function in Zoom, and you can, ask a question about something that someone wrote for question one, or you can contribute to question one. So why don't you go ahead and do that now? And again, as you have questions about any of those contributions to question one, just raise your hand and we'll go from there. Okay, it looks like Donna is first up. So Donna.
Okay. I don't even know if she listed in there. I know from talking to Andrea that they did a lot of open office hours, and I was wondering if she was still doing that now that we're into the semester, or have they kind of backed off on that?
We are definitely still doing it. We are lucky enough though at Monroe we have about like a core team of about 3 instructional designers, admin, and then we have a couple other backup people that come and help us in our Zoom room. We hired a previous system admin that we had part-time, so she helps us from Florida. So we're still continuing Zoom hours. We do it 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and we usually have about 2 and sometimes 3 people from our team staffing it, and then faculty are dropping in. We surveyed them and they like being able to just drop in and not have to make appointments because they don't know when they're actually going to need to meet with us. And they're quick. We try to encourage, like, these are for kind of shorter questions. If we have time though, we'll spend more time like cleaning up grade books with people and doing some more in-depth, conversations. And so we use the breakout rooms in our Zoom room to kind of break off. So it works really well for us too, but I don't know if I can help answer anything else. Let me know, Donna.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. All right, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. So we want to take advantage of the SUNY training and the Brightspace training, but it's all, like, the quantity of it is overwhelming, and the different styles of it and lengths of it. How have other campuses advertised that to their faculty so that faculty end up in the one that makes the most sense for them?
Good question.
I'm really curious about that, Lisa. We try to, on the DLE training website, we try to drive people through the decision tree, but if there's a way we can make that more clear and helpful, I would love to entertain that.
Camila, you have an answer to Lisa's question?
So we had a remarkable thing happen at Suffolk County Community College. We had a faculty who just was extremely motivated and created a series of videos from our perspective that we then put on our faculty resources page, and faculty found that very helpful, peer-to-peer kind of mentoring. And it was not solicited at all. And then we had somebody else create written documentation. So we were very thankful, that those several individuals stepped forward for that.
Thanks, Camille. Pam?
Lisa, I can answer a little bit of that because Upstate is part of cohort 1. I mean, we had to dive in quickly. And so we were encouraging our faculty to request the sandbox or 2 or 3 from D2L. And then we encouraged faculty to go through the assessment tool that SUNY and Jamie and her team had set up, and then decide which training options that SUNY was offering best suited them. I don't have a record of who signed up and participated, but I can tell you that a number of them did go through the webinars, so real-time webinars, and found them very helpful and really didn't ask Kristen and I for a lot of help. And then we had others that thought that they would do the asynchronous option and wound up getting kind of overwhelmed because they didn't know how to find things within the webinars. And so they chose to go the simple route. Kristen and I were doing a lot of demos, at least weekly and sometimes daily, to get folks ready for the pilot in the summer and then for the fall liftoff. And so we were doing demos on how to build content, which was basically looking at modules, items, and assignments. We did a second demo on building discussions because they're so very different than they are in Blackboard, a session on tests, again, different than Blackboard, and then a session on Grade Center. And then as we got closer to the liftoff, we did sessions on course management in addition to some of the others. And we had a pretty significant number of faculty attend those and attend our daily office hours, which we still offer. Kristen and I flip-flop, and so one of us will do morning office hours, one of us will do afternoon office hours, and we've set up our own teaching with Brightspace course that has mostly documents, links to some of the videos, but that also includes a module on tools. So there's information in there on Turnitin and Respondus Lockdown Browser and some of the other tools that we've got. And we've had pretty good success with people either attending the demos or the office hours, which we encourage for the Grade Center, or our Friday afternoon open labs.
Just a follow-up question, Pam. Did the sessions that you ran live on your campus, did you feel like you focused a little more on, you did this in Blackboard, now you're going to do this in Brightspace? Or were you teaching the tool just as you would teach any new tool?
Yeah, I would say that for early on, we were doing a lot of, in Blackboard, you did this, or you found it here, and in Brightspace, you did it here, because most people, and by most people, I mean probably 80% of our faculty chose to work with converted Blackboard courses. And about 20% of the people said, I'm going to build from scratch, which was either a good way to learn Brightspace, and that's why they made that decision, or because they knew that their course was way beyond spring cleaning and they really needed to start over. And so this was their opportunity to do that. I will say that my only regret, honestly, in all the faculty development component of this was that it had to happen so rapidly that were it not for the SUNY training, a lot of folks probably wouldn't have been reached. And I wished we'd had 2 years to do the migration in order to better prepare faculty for it, but time was not on our side.
Jeffrey.
Hey, Chris. Hello, everybody. So a couple of, we're in cohort 3. So, we're still standing on the beach looking at the wave, as it's coming in. We have started a group in partnership with the Faculty Senate Committee on Instructional Technology. So we have a lot of people who are going to participate in customization of the basic course shell as it appears. We're hoping to set up a little bit of, those of you who remember Angel may recall that you could pick different templates to apply to your course before you started building it. And we're hoping to set up a little template store after we go through the templates and simplify them. The templates now are very laden with a lot of options to cover a lot of different possibilities. And so we want to just focus those a little bit to what we know works best for us. One of the things I want to comment on is anybody who's ever Googled for help on Blackboard, for example, will see like 50,000 different versions of how to enable your course and how to upload content and how to do this and how to do that. And so one of my personal goals is not to reinvent things. Unless our instance looks really different from others, which I don't think it will, because we're really, pedagogically, we would like the courses to look very similar in terms of navigation and organization. But we do feel that because our campus has an FTE about 8,500, we have about 1,000 faculty because we are about 80% part-time. And so we have a lot of people who are multi-LMS lingual, so to speak. There are a lot of people who know Canvas, Brightspace, and Blackboard. So we're hoping the asynchronous course will be a great resource for people to hunt for the things they want or to go through the whole thing, depending on the level. I think that from what I'm seeing, the biggest concern is for those who are using tests, in Blackboard and moving them forward. But I'm kind of hoping in a community of practice that we can sort of minimize needless duplication and try to focus resources to get the best possible options that are more centralized, so that we avoid, because first of all, we're really short-staffed here, like talk about the great resignation. We had like 49 retirements at FIT in the past year. We're really shorthanded, and the idea of making videos for things that have already been effectively done at Mount Monroe or some other places in the early cohorts, it seems like we should try to consolidate as much as possible. I want to just mention one more thing as a model. When COVID hit and SUNY was offering banks of IDs to help out people, who would call in, that model really helped us. And we had full staff at that point, but obviously there's more need than there is capacity in most schools. So that's one of the things I'm hoping we could achieve with this community of practice, Chris.
Thanks, Jeffrey. All right, I've been keeping up with the chat. I'll copy the chat and put it at the end of this doc after the session's over, and I'll put the link to the recording at the top, replace the Zoom link there. Any other general questions about, services, programs? We can start moving down the list. If not, we did talk a little bit already about integrating the SUNY DLE trainings into your programs or services. Anybody want to ask a question or elaborate on anything that's there?
I had put in the chat and Chilton's responded here. Julie Sharma from Stony Brook has done some magical things for her campus, and she shared that with me last week. And so I shared a link that is from their Stony Brook site for faculty workshops, webinars, etc., all the things they offer on theirs. But she incorporated our registration into that for the DLE Brightspace workshops. And she said, so she said that she'd be more than happy to talk to us about it. So maybe an implementation team meeting, Pam, we could invite her because I think that a number of campuses would be happy to incorporate that. It was really a nice way. So you can click on that link and see what that looks like there.
Sounds good. All right. So question 3, I kind of put these in order of questions that I thought you'd be interested in, but if you feel like you want to jump ahead to any of the later questions, feel free, you know, again, this is your hour. So, you know, I was curious to see how you've been integrating Brightspace, using Brightspace as a moment to have faculty kind of consider other things. I was pleased to see so many of you mentioning accessibility and UDL and taking this as a moment to help them design accessible courses, right? You know, Pam's comment before about this idea of migration versus building from scratch. I mean, building from scratch, that's what I did for my course. And I found a lot of the accessibility suggestions in the trainings that Jamie led super helpful, things that I just had no idea about that if I hadn't migrated, it probably wouldn't have happened. So does anybody else want to ask a question or highlight anything they've done to integrate the Brightspace training into other programs?
We keep saying at Upstate that a lot of the things that we would like to do will be coming in our second or third year with Brightspace. Right now, it's just a matter of getting everybody migrated in there before we can start going up the ladder in terms of additional ideas and intermediate and advanced skills.
Okay, let's move on then. I mean, you've all talked about a little about resources. Is there anything that you found other than, you know, the SUNY training that you found really helpful? And that was this next question, question 4. And to echo something Jeffrey said before, I mean, the course that I teach has non-traditional grading, and you know, Jamie was, I'm lucky enough to have access to Jamie, you know, on instant message, you know, I could just, Jamie, help me out. But before I did that, I looked online for alternative, you know, setting up, you know, grade books for the grade book and Brightspace for specifications grading is what I use. And I couldn't find anything. So we had to find a workaround, but it'd be really good to know if you all have found other resources out there. I know somebody mentioned, was it the LinkedIn modules that they've been utilizing, anything else like that? Yeah, Linda.
I don't use Zoom very much, so I had to find all the buttons. I'm used to Teams. SUNY Brockport, I don't have an answer to your question, Chris, but I can say that we're doing this phased in, and we're starting to do a lot of just shared conversations. So those that have learned and are doing it this semester by choice are starting to meet with other faculty. We are a little nervous because our whole campus is flipping the switch, obviously in January, that how many people have not chosen. We made it an optional fall semester. I work closely with our instructional design team, and on behalf of them, I know we almost wish we just did, like with Angel, I feel like, Chris, you were Brockport, you might remember this. Like, I feel like we just did the cold, like the light went on and the light went off. And to some degree, maybe that was a good approach or a bad approach, but I think, like was just said earlier, we're going to figure it out as we go. But really encouraging the SUNY sources that are there and the the conversations like, hey, did you know you can press this button? Or, you know, I don't know. I hate to use the poke and hope approach, but that's kind of where we're, you know, Golden Eagles, we're trying.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you all look at the Google Doc, there's no shortage of different modes of doing this, right? That's why I wanted to have this meeting, because I don't think the one size fits all approach would work with different campuses, different faculty, that sort of thing. So Okay. Oh, look at this. You dropped that in there. Oh, MCC.
Yeah, that was from us. We surveyed faculty recently and kind of asked a lot of these questions, kind of similar types of questions, and that's what they found helpful. But really, the most helpful they said were our Zoom drop-in hours, just because they can process all the SUNY training that they went to, all the things that they've seen, and then kind of ask something specific to what they were working on. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is an N of 1 here, but that, I mean, essentially what I did was I watched recordings on like double time of the webinars, the scaled webinars, and then I had my questions, and then I had my instructional designer, Jamie, help me with whatever I had questions about. Thanks for dropping that in there, Andrew. All right, let's keep moving on. Again, feel free to jump in. So what Brightspace programs, trainings do you wish you had that you don't have right now?
I see the short focus video library on specific topics. We've actually, over the past couple of weeks, gone through all of our videos and indexed and bookmarked them. And so what we'll have for you in the next week, I hope, it was delayed a little bit when our people had COVID. So anyway, what we have is an index list of common tasks that will take you directly to that video moment in the video so that you don't have to scroll or whatever. That seems to be our solution to the quick 2 to 5 minute in length. We just don't have the time or capacity to build that out, but I would love to get to that shortly. Yay, right? So that'll be on the faculty resources page on the DLE website. Exactly.
And then, not really sure what. So I know Doodle meetings were opened up during the remote period during the height of the pandemic, right? Is that what I guess the suggestion is, to have more OIT staff? And I don't know. Can someone clarify that? Or maybe the person who put that out might not be here. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Again, feel free to add to any of these questions, any of these boxes, please do. All right. Support challenges. We've already heard the timeline is compressed and we wish we had more time. Don't we always? Yeah. But that's been a challenge, right? Linda mentioned the challenge of worrying about some faculty who just, having the phased in approach is good because you get to pilot things, but then, sometimes it's just good to rip the Band-Aid off right away and everybody doing everything at the same time. Moodle, I wonder who put that in there. Well, it's either Lisa or Keith Landa, right? Fredonia, Purchase. What other Moodle campuses do we have?
It was probably Laura.
Laura.
We are.
It was me, Chris. It was me. I own it. I own it. It was me.
Isn't Plattsburgh Moodle?
Yes, they are. Yeah, we are, I'll be really honest, we are still struggling because there's less out there about Moodle to Brightspace. And it's also not as successful of a migration tool. So we're working on it.
So there's a request for synchronous training on evenings and weekends. I know with sort of adjunct part-time faculty, that's probably a big help, but maybe not just them, maybe everybody.
We did have synchronous trainings available in the evenings, and we did that in the spring, just before the summer pilot, and we did that in August, just before the fall pilot. We can do that again. We just have to, be guaranteed that we have registrations, because we end up having to pay people to do that because it's outside of normal working hours. We did have a couple of sessions that filled up really well in August. So if that's something people want to do, if you want to send me an email, I can arrange those if there's demand. You just have to let me know.
Jamie, do you know, I mean, this number 3 here, I mean, I know that, there's been frustration about, the limit to access that IDs had with Blackboard or obviously Moodle that they don't have with Brightspace. Do you know if, I mean, and again, if you don't know, or can't say, just feel free to punt, but are we going to phase in? I know this is a now essentially hosted instance, right? And all the campuses are tenants of that instance, but do you think there'll be any kind of phasing in of allowing campuses to have more access and control down the line? Or do you think we have this model, we have to figure out how to make it work?
I don't want to say anything for certain as if it's a hard and fixed truth, but from my impression, I think that's the plan subsequent to now. Once we get everybody into the instance with their own tenant, etc. And it's because there are risks associated with the tasks that were listed there, of course, and we just want to make sure that that can get done without making visible things that shouldn't be visible, adding people that shouldn't be added, etc. But that's really a question for the implementation team and Harry Cargile. I do know that that's not the ultimate goal, which is to restrict IDs and DLE admins, system admins from doing the work that they are intending to do. I think it's a protection thing right now, but hopefully down the line. I know from our end at the CPD, we have the same issue. We can't create our own courses. We have the same issues here. So off the record, if we're not recording, I know we are. There are some workarounds that we've shared. So I just created a whole bunch of blank course shells that I can go in as a sysadmin on my campus, change the course name and the course information offering section in the course admin, and then play with those. That's a good opportunity for me to create those like practice shells for faculty or any of those other things that I might need to just go in and test. But people are figuring out some workarounds to the limitations we have right now.
Thanks, Jamie. So I asked that question. I know I didn't want to get too in the technical weeds here, since this is about supporting faculty. But obviously, these two things go hand in hand. And I think a lot of faculty frustration and ID frustration kind of can create an environment where it's difficult to get people trained in using the tool and get in there. So I see a lot of comments here for this question about faculty resistance, faculty frustration, hostility. The timing wasn't ideal for faculty. So I guess what I'd be curious to know in terms of what are you doing to kind of work within these constraints? How are you kind of approaching faculty? I know some of you mentioned that you have faculty, sort of pilot faculty or Brightspace champions. That sometimes faculty to faculty kind of can go better than hearing from those who support it, right? Andrea, go ahead.
So I have a lot of comments in there, and they might seem, they're not meant to seem harsh, but it's just kind of the reality of like, it is what it is. We volunteered to be cohort 1, and I think we try, as much as we have issues with the whole process and how it kind of was rolled out. We still try to be really positive with our faculty and try to encourage all of the cool features of the system and how it can help long term. And so, for all of our concerns and complaints and frustrations and giving up like our entire year of going through this, and we're very invested in wanting to make it work correctly. We want to support SUNY. We want to want things to go well, and at the same time, our team is well, known across campus as providing high quality, customer service support for our faculty. So I think it's just, we communicate as much as we have. And so I think we made that a priority to make sure faculty were always in the loop. They knew why we were doing things. They knew if things were gonna take a little longer. And we really tried to, have their backs and make sure they were fully supported on the back end, despite all of my, concerns and challenges and stuff like that. So.
Thanks, Andrea. No, it's helpful. I mean, again, this is all really helpful information to have across the board. So I appreciate your frankness in answering that question. I'm sure I could speak for Jamie here as well. I think, and again, it's easy for me to say this because I've been not as directly involved as Jamie and others and my colleagues in system, but if it helps for system to be the bad guy with your faculty, I mean, obviously we still want to be responsive, but I think that that could be an approach to getting them on your side. Be like, listen, we're working together here, and big bad system. And that's a strategy I always tell instructors, right? Like, when you have policies that your campus has, when you're working with students, be like, look, let's work together to, overcome these horrible policies or something like that. So to get them on your side. I don't know how well that'll work, but I mean, it'd be better if it all just worked well, right? But I'm trying to find the silver lining here, I suppose. Donna.
Sorry, had to find the button. One of the things that happened with our staff, we had a whole department put together a list of, I guess you could call them grievances, and what they couldn't do in Brightspace or what they didn't know how to do in Brightspace. And I was actually very happy to get that list from them because I was able to go through and answer all their questions and say, this is what you can do for this right now. And I gave them examples, showed them videos, whatever. And then the things that are being looked at by Brightspace, I actually went out to their product ideas, their PI website, and I looked up the information and I reported back on things that were being previewed and processed and looked at and everything else. And I was able to give them just letting them know that, yes, you're not alone. You're not the only people that are having issues with this, and the company's aware of it and they're looking. And I hope and pray that we end up with more results than what we had with Blackboard, because it seemed like all of our concerns kind of went out into the cloud and never got looked at. But I'm hoping that, and I'm seeing that we're getting a little bit more feedback from Brightspace, and I hope that communication continues. So.
Thank you, Donna. I definitely wanted to get to this question for those who are in future upcoming cohorts. So those of you that have already gone through it, what do you wish you knew before you started planning your program services trainings? Question 7, right? So yeah, I mean, that's number one, the clear advantages of Brightspace over Blackboard. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's turn the corner a little here. What are you telling faculty about the advantages of Brightspace over Blackboard? What is it in your opinion? You can throw it in the chat if you don't want to jump in.
I'm actually doing a presentation on Friday at Jefferson Community College just on that topic. What are the efficiencies? What's the value in Brightspace for you as a faculty and for students? And so there are so many. I could talk to you for hours about it, but I'm curious what you're doing though on your campuses.
Can I jump in here for a minute? I think that SUNY has already gone back or gone past what a lot of our concerns were and some of the stumbling blocks that we had. Because I think the big thing was they were learning at the same time we were trying to learn. And I will say that probably cohorts 3 and 4 are going to be in 10 times better shape because of all the resources that are out there. So, I mean, like Andrea said, we offered to be cohort 1 and it was our choice. And I'm hoping that we all contributed to those resources. And I know Jamie worked her butt off and her team was incredible. And like I said, I hope that everything that we've done will help the next couple of cohorts to go a little bit smoother. That's it.
Thanks, Donna. Yeah, I see Andrea's contribution in the chat. I mean, that's my opinion as well. It's just, and I've just gotten that feedback from my students. It just seems more modern friendly, mobile friendly, more current. All right, well, let's keep going then. 8 kind of follows from what I just asked, so I'll just let you all take a look at what 8 has to say there.
I added a lot of features that we liked. Like a lot of it is from our list that we had been keeping from D2L did like an overview and I think it was last fall, and our whole team kind of went through both sessions and we listened to them. And I think it was Phil that did that demo, and he did a great job kind of getting people excited about the product. So a lot of these like features, I copied and pasted from our big list of things, and I think there's a lot of cool things with Brightspace that Blackboard necessarily, didn't do well, or it was clunky. So I threw a lot of those in there.
Thanks, Andrew. Anybody's hearing from faculty and students? I mean, see what they like specifically about it, other than what's already been said, or maybe one of these features that Andrea listed in that question 8. Personally, just the ability to add audio and video to everything is so much easier than Blackboard. I feel like they used to hide those features in Blackboard and they didn't want you to use them, but it's just so integrated into everything, into announcements and feedback on assignments and gradebook. I love the ability to just add an audio note and it automatically gets transcribed. So you could just kind of add, you don't ever have to write comments if that's your thing. If you want to just speak your comments and they get a transcript of it. It's fantastic.
One thing about that we just discovered in the last 2 weeks, audio and video note feedback on gradable activities can be somewhat challenging for students to find. Because if they're accustomed to finding that feedback in the grades area for themselves or in the class progress for themselves, it doesn't actually show up. They have to go get that feedback from the gradable activity itself. So if you provided audio feedback on an assignment, they have to go to assignments, click into that assignment and see the feedback there. I brought that to the attention of Chris Stucker 2 weeks ago. So they recognize that there's some sort of disconnect there. So I hope they're going to fix that for us. But just as an FYI, if you're working with faculty who use that.
Good to know, Jamie. Actually, when I gave my students their feedback, I love that you can see whether or not they saw the feedback, right? So like I had students who didn't listen to my feedback, even though I gave them the instructions to go into the assignment. And then student did the same thing for the second assignment. And I said, you didn't listen to my feedback for the first assignment. And you did the same thing for the second assignment. He said, oh, yeah. A lot of them though are checking a lot of times on their phones with the Pulse app, and you can't access it there. So Rachel.
Oh, I would just add that, I tried that video feature that just kind of generically plugged in, and it wasn't showing up in their grade books and was confusing. So we had integrated Panopto, which integrates really nicely, just right in there, and they can see it in the grade book. So because our Panopto integration is pretty smooth, I found it just as easy.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. All right, so 9 is, what's been challenging. The whole, was it the topic versus discussion, the layered nature of discussions has been a little bit, a little tricky. All right, let's keep moving down. So yeah, I was curious, to what percentage of faculty have been utilizing programs and services. I know that that's still early, and I know this is a question that was buried a bit, but it's always that question of, are the people who need the training, who need the programs, who need the services, who need to be working with IDs, doing it? Or how are you getting to those who really need it, and how are you triaging? I know early on, those of you in cohort 1, it was a little bit of Wild West and tough to figure out what was going to be useful for who. So again, I appreciate all those comments from those of you who explained the issues that you had early on with training. So hopefully those of you that are yet to come will be able to avoid some of those issues. So drop-in hours look good. And then, I almost didn't ask this question 11, but I do know that, again, as was mentioned earlier, the issue of migrating versus building from scratch. It sounds like most of your faculty, you've migrated courses for most of your faculty, and just a few built from scratch. Yeah, so Pam mentioned about upstate 80%. Any incentives to faculty to have them built from scratch to calm their fears?
Chris,
Yeah, Laura.
this is Laura. I am running into a negative reason to not use the Blackboard content, specifically the quizzes. So moving forward, if I could have known a little bit more about what I know now, I probably would have deterred them from using the quizzes. The reason being is the quizzes are not being graded correctly. The multiple select and the matching, the default setting is not giving the students the credit for the answers that they're providing. So when you're looking at your questions, for example, the multiple select, if you look at the bottom, it'll say, how do you want, I'm paraphrasing, but how do you want to grade the blanks? So you need to be careful that if anyone is using multiple selects, please ask them to go and look at those before they give the exam or the quiz. Because updating afterwards is really becoming a nightmare for some of my faculty. So the students are not getting the points that they have earned. So I'm in the process right now of trying to figure out the right process and the order to make those updates once the students have taken the quiz. So I think right now for me, a negative for migrating content would be migrating the quizzes. They have probably caused us the most issue from Blackboard.
Thank you, Laura. That's super helpful. Appreciate that. Any other migration issues that folks want to highlight for Everyone else, yeah, Andrea.
We surveyed I mean, obviously timing was an issue, like we had to quickly just get people into the system. So I think our approach, we were under a time crunch, maybe would have been a little different. So we did have I think that we surveyed and we had about 20% of people said they built from scratch. And there's a screenshot too from our little survey. A lot of them did a mix of they transferred, and if it was a mess, they kind of did some cleanup or adjustments. We had some challenges with tests too. We used K16 for some of the problem quizzes, and that helped a little bit, but we kind of got it too late in the process. A lot of people were adjuncts and they got a copy of a shell that a full-time faculty worked on and they shared it. So they had a lot of different kind of strategies. So, I mean, I think you kind of have to think about that at the campus level, if you're in like future cohorts and how you want to approach that. And I think it's, like I said, we were kind of under a time crunch when we were going through it. So we had to really encourage the migration.
Thanks, Andrea, and thanks so much for putting that in there. That's really helpful. I appreciate it. Donna.
I had the experience of actually having to build from scratch for a couple of we moved some groups over and I rebuilt those. And I also have 5 1-credit modules that I had to move over for fall. So I chose both methods to try. And I will say anybody that says it takes less time to migrate a course over and clean it up isn't cleaning it up the way they should. Because there's so much work involved. If they're using, like you said, the tests, I had tests, I extensively used rubrics, and I'm spending a lot of time going in and cleaning up a lot of the rubrics in all of my courses. And I noticed that like the headings didn't roll over properly. I know a lot of the faculty had problems rolling over tests that had images in them. So a lot of our nursing and our arts programs had images, so they did not roll over very well, and they ended up having to rebuild the tests anyway. So I think you take as much time to rebuild as you do to clean it up properly. But one of the biggest advantages that they learn how to use the program. They learn how to use the platform. So I would say that's the biggest advantage of them going through. And I see that she puts down the angels of ghosts. I had to laugh because now we're back to Dropboxes again. So half those people that never bothered changing it to assignments in Blackboard, the Dropboxes are back, so they don't have to change that wording. So at this point, I think it all depends on how much content you have, how it's in there. What I had instructions on every single assignment, how to submit the assignment. So I had to go in and change every single one of them. I felt that if a student skipped over them on one because they were late to the class, if I didn't have those instructions, at least in the second week, it wasn't going to help them. So I do have a couple of faculty that are bragging that, it was so easy to roll their content over, but when I went back to look at the courses, they did not clean up. So yes, it was a lot easier for them, but that was our experiences.
Thank you, Don. Jeffrey.
Donna, thank you for making that comparison. I also see what Andrea wrote about rebuilding versus migration. I think that what we're learning from the first 2 cohorts is how to set better expectations for the faculty on, what might be the best path for them. The problem that I think that we anticipate is there are many people who have invested so much in building these incredibly complex Blackboard courses, and it's just not possible in one sweep to replicate, especially when you don't have the same insight about the new LMS compared to what you've learned about Blackboard. And a lot of what we learned about Blackboard is how to make it work when it doesn't work, or how to ignore, the things that never worked well to make it work better. So I kind of feel that the Blackboard migration is like bringing a contagion. It's almost like we're injecting COVID into Brightspace by encouraging so much migration that people are going to end up fighting it. And I'm really concerned because not everybody's going to be so diligent about cleaning up their quizzes, making sure they're assessing properly. And when you have 80% part-time, I think that we're better off ramping up by building our courses as essentially needed from scratch and then letting them grow as we grow. But I just have one question for anybody who wants to toss in, is how are the LTI integrations going? You know, those of you who are bringing in, you know, VoiceThread or Screencast-O-Matic or other tools that are integrated through LTI. Anybody have any unusual problems with that?
That's a great question, Jeffrey. Yeah, I saw something referenced earlier about that on the doc, but don't recall where.
Yeah, Andrea just commented it's time consuming, but she thinks it'll go faster. You know, well, after you guys have all been plowing the roads to clear it, you know, for cohort 3, you know, we're very grateful.
And I think SUNY is kind of restructuring too, so they'll have people focused on integrations, and so I think it will be better too in the end. But I would say, like, if you know, make sure you have a list of everything, all of your integrations, have contact information for the vendors, all that kind of stuff. That's going to help set you up for being ready when they ask for the information from SUNY, and you can just kind of push forward. So
you know, we're ready.
it'll get better.
We're ready that way. Thank you. But all right. So just one last question, since I still have the mic, is has anybody evaluated the LinkedIn Learning trainings that are up there? They have a fairly big course up there. I know at FIT, the Blackboard course was actually quite popular because of the way it was indexed for you to, you know, hunt and peck for the things you need. And that's my last question.
Somebody put that in the doc, Jeffrey. I forget who. Let me see if I can find it. Well, I try to find that. Donna, you want to?
What I was going to mention was the LTI integrations. And Andrea did say that SUNY is redoing their processes on the help desk end to help work with all those LTI integrations. And I think the problem that a lot of us encountered was that each individual admin was trying to do all the LTI integrations for their campuses, and things were not getting shared. And I think that put a hold on a lot of things and made the process much longer. So I think, Jeffrey, I think that you're going to see a huge turnaround for your end, because a lot of those bugs have been worked out. And I know that Harry kept talking about they had over 200 different LTI integrations that they put in. So hopefully any of the ones that you have, they've already done, so they know how to do them, and the process will be much quicker. So one of the things we're still working on right now is our Starfish integration. And we've done it in the test environment, and we're just getting ready to go into the full-blown product environment with SUNY.
It is noon. I'm going to stick around. I don't have anything right now. So I see Rachel and Debbie want to ask a question. So, but if you got to head out, I just want to say really quickly, our next meeting is in 3 weeks or so, Wednesday, November 9th. And Jessamine Newhouse from Plattsburgh is going to talk about leveraging a department delegate program to share inclusive teaching practices. So that's the 9th from 1 to 2. So it's a Wednesday, but it's at 1, not at 11. And I'll just drop, if you didn't register for it, I'll just drop the link to the registration in there. If you want to make sure you're registered, you can do so there. All right. So like I said, I'll stick around as long as you want to stick around, and we'll just kick it over to Rachel.
Oh, I just thought I was going to comment on the LinkedIn Learning. So I don't think I would have faculty slog through all of it. I think you just make a playlist of certain things, but if I were in cohort 2 or 3, I think maybe some of these homemade videos that we're making might even be better, because then we see the real instance of what it looks like, you know, on your campus or on the SUNY, you know what I mean? So, but we had mixed reviews about the LinkedIn Learning.
Thank you. Yeah, this one size fits all thing is concerning, and that's why I'm kind of hoping that the asynchronous course will at least help clear the field a little bit and help people to work at their own pace well before they start building. So we'll see.
Hi, Debbie. You're muted. Muted.
Hey, Chris and all, thanks for doing this and all the campuses in the thick of this for your insight and this document to review. I just want to say, and hopefully as a cohort 4 campus, we will get more of the lessons learned. But I think the unknown now is just so greatly raising faculty anxiety levels and hearing what other campuses are going through. And it's very difficult as an administrator not to have answers to these questions and without having access. So if there's one thing going forward that we could do for the cohort 3 and 4 is to look at the timeline which SUNY has put out, which is very generic, and maybe we can break it down into more specifics and expectations. When do we expect these system admins to get trained, the instructional designers, the faculty to gain access? The timeline is really tight for our campus if we're not starting until January, and our semester ends the end of May. So I'm getting questions on, do faculty have to work over the summer to prepare their courses? So I hope this is something that SUNY can address in part. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I should have actually highlighted this last question, but you know, I think it's good that we're keeping track of these questions because it sort of speaks to what you're just talking about, Debbie, and you know, so if anybody is still left here, has any other things to add to this very last question, and then if you have answers to any of these questions, that would be good too. Maybe what I'll do is I'll share this out again with everybody who registered for today, and just remind them that this is a living document, to feel free to continue to add to it, and also look at that last question, which we didn't really get to, and if they have any answers for those who are migrating in future semesters and future cohorts, to address those there as well. But we'll definitely share this, and you know, Jamie will share this with the DLE transition team.
Oh, that'd be great.
Thank you for this Google Doc. I think it was amazing. I mean,
Great, yeah, no, I mean, it's easy enough for me to do. You all did the work.
No, well, I didn't put anything in because we're cohort 3 and they're just getting started now at Delhi. They're just getting the change champions lined up, of which I am one, and so that's why I came, so I could, you know, get a heads up. I think I'm hoping that we're not going to have all out panic, because we have an accreditation meeting coming. We have Middle States coming in February. We have ASIN coming for our nursing program in March, and new professional standards that we have to put in for our nursing program. So there's so much going on at one time. I think there is just a sense of numbness in a way that they don't even know what's coming down. And so I kind of am listening to how much time it's taking and all that. And our faculty, I think, has no idea that they may have to recreate their courses. I think they're thinking it's going to slide in. And that's not the sense I'm getting from today. So I do not want to raise their anxiety. I will not do that. But mine has been, so just passing that along. But anyway, thank you. Thanks very much for doing this, Chris.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to stop the recording. And